Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at our iPhone 6s and the iPhone 7 and see how both of these iPhones compare in 2024. Now, funny enough, these two iPhones came out so long ago. The iPhone 6s came out in 2015, the iPhone 7 came out in 2016, and they're 1 year apart, but it's very funny because these two phones look similar, but there were actually lots of differences between them. They are now fully unsupported with software, which is very sad, but let's go and see how both these iPhones compare in this year. If you want to pick up either one of these phones, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside, the iPhone 6s on the front had a 4.7-inch IPS panel, and it was like a good panel when it first came out. I liked it because it was pretty much, the same thing as we were getting on the previous iPhone, which was the iPhone 6. But this was still a very good looking iPhone. I didn't really have like an insane amount of things to complain about with this particular device. You can clearly see both these iPhones look very old and outdated. You were getting the top bezel right up here, which again looked pretty good for the most part. The bottom, you were getting Touch ID 2, which was nice. I kind of missed being able to like tap this thing and having it like come down like this, which is pretty cool. You were also getting the big bezel at the bottom too. But overall, like it's still like a fairly good looking iPhone. Of course this thing doesn't look that amazing anymore, but still I've seen worse looking devices and this thing doesn't really look that terrible when it comes down to it. The iPhone 7 also looked almost exactly the same thing as the other iPhone. So in the iPhone 7, you were also getting a 4.7-inch IPS panel. Again, nothing super insane. The only issue I really had with this iPhone, again, is the same issue I've had with the 6S, the amount of bezel on it. Big top bezel, big bottom bezel as well. But again, you get what you get, and it's not the worst thing in the world. I've definitely seen, phones, like I said before, that look worse than this thing. So, not the biggest deal in the world by any means. On the sides, you can see kind of the same thing going on here too. So they were fairly thin. There wasn't really like big massive differences between these two from that perspective. But I did have the jet black version of the iPhone 7, which looked beautiful. Much different type of design or layout than the iPhone 6s. On the top, not really much going on here. On the bottom, you were getting your lightning ports on both, but interestingly enough, the iPhone 6s was the last iPhone with a headphone jack. This was a very interesting thing because the iPhone 6s in its own way is legendary, and the iPhone 7 is also legendary. The fact that both these iPhones were the first or the last. The 6s with the last one with the headphone jack, and the 7 the last or the first one without a headphone jack. Pretty crazy stuff here. On the back side, you were getting very different types of stylings on the iPhone 7 depending on which one you were getting. So the 7s looked much nicer. You can see the 7, this one had the jet black model, but the other ones had a standard model. Still, even those models still looked pretty good. The 6S had these lines and everything going through it. I think the 7s definitely looked better, but this jet black model looks amazing. If Apple ever brings this back, I would probably end up buying this one. It doesn't even feel like glass and it doesn't feel like plastic. I don't know what it feels like, but it feels like its own texture. And if you've never held a jet black iPhone before, I'd recommend, picking it up. It was such a nice touch, and I really do miss this. I feel like it was really cool. Beyond that, though, and I feel like it's cheaper for Apple to make it like this rather than even putting glass on it, to be honest. But frosted glass back is probably my favorite, to be honest. But regardless, on the outside, that's kind of what you were getting. Some things that both these phones are missing that a lot of phones have nowadays. Obviously, no wireless charging, no multiple camera setups, things like that. But also the iPhone 6s, the iPhone 7 and 6s both had water resistance, but definitely it's not as good as it is nowadays. And overall, that kind of covers it up here. In terms of software, both these phones are completely unsupported with software right now. They're not getting any more software updates, and that's kind of a sad thing. However, they're still getting some security updates, which is actually very, very interesting. So if you were into getting more security updates, you were essentially getting that on both these devices, which again is actually a very interesting thing, but no full-on OS updates as far as we know. So that kind of covers it up there as well. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both of these devices. The iPhone 6s had that Apple A9 chip inside of it with 2 GB of RAM, where the iPhone 7 also, it had the Apple A10 Fusion chip inside of it with 2 GB of RAM as well. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, so let us get into it. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same thing. Music 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone 7 is here, the 6S is here. Okay, of course we get into this pop-up here. Not really too sure what's going on there. Let's go and hop out of both these again. So we get into the next one. Okay, I don't know why I'm getting these pop-ups now. Let's go and get into something like camera. Let's do clock. 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same thing. Let's get into mail. 3, 2, 1. And the 7 I think was faster there. Let's get into photos. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Again, the iPhone 7 was the faster one there. Camera. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Let's go up out of here. So I'm going to do reminders, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that kind of covers it up here. Going to here, let's do their app stores, 3, 2, 1. Now I don't even know if I have Wi-Fi or not, but I guess we'll see. And I do have Wi-Fi. Actually, I don't know which one was faster here. They both were kind of the same. I think the 6S was like slightly a little bit faster. So that was kind of interesting. Scrolling through, there's some interesting stuff going on here too, but very similar type of experience between both. I think that there was a lot of similarity there for the most part. Let's go into something like settings, 3, 2, 1. Okay, kind of the same thing. Apple TV, 3, 2, 1. And the 6S definitely was the faster one there. Podcast, 3, 2, 1. Okay, again, the 7 was the faster one. We got it here. Files, 3, 2, 1. Now, with my iPhone 6S, I actually don't have enough storage to even install any applications besides Subway Surfers. So we can try using this app, 3, 2, 1. And the problem with that is because the iPhone 6S only came out as 16GB model, you're missing out on a lot of things from that particular perspective. So I wish this phone could give us those types of things. Unfortunately, no. But still, the iPhone 7 would have probably been faster because it was giving you that pop-up beforehand. So overall, what I will definitely tell you is, in my personal opinion, you're definitely getting like very good phones between both. At least you were back in the day. But clearly, both these devices are no longer really worth buying anymore. They're kind of unsupported with full OS updates, and it really just doesn't make any sense to go and purchase these devices from that perspective. Like I said before, you are much better off buying devices that are still supported with software. Unfortunately, with these things, they're not really there. I wouldn't really recommend picking them up from that particular perspective. So that kind of covers it up there. In the camera side of things, though, both these phones are very, very interesting as well. So they were fairly similar in a lot of ways. The iPhone 6S and the iPhone 7 on the back had 12 megapixel wide-angle lenses. They both were single cameras. Funny enough, we did end up getting the dual camera setup, or the first dual camera setup on an iPhone, on the iPhone 7 Plus. So this in and of itself was a very interesting thing. Beyond that, though, there's not really like super insane things going on between these two devices. They're both very, very average cameras in this day and age. So something like the iPhone 6S, the thing I always, I guess, kind of liked about the 6S was that it was the first iPhone to bring a 4K lens. So you are able to film 4K video on this thing, which is actually pretty impressive. You're getting video mode here, you're getting slow mode, time-lapse, square mode, panorama mode. So still a lot of other interesting things going on here. Like I said, definitely not the best camera of all time, and you were definitely getting better cameras on the newest iPhone, but it was still like kind of legendary in its own right that it did have 4K, or at least brought 4K. With the iPhone 7, definitely very much more or less the same thing. It's not anything super crazy either. I guess there was a little bit of an improvement, but you can't really tell. There's not really like you're going to be able to say like, oh, this is the, way better camera. Not really the case. This type of camera, it is what it is, square, panorama mode, video mode as well. But like I said, it was a good camera. But when it comes down to both these devices, I really don't know if there's like a device I'd look at and I would recommend that one over this one. Like, both these phones are pretty old, and I probably wouldn't recommend any single average person to go and buy either one of these devices. You are much better off purchasing devices that are still somewhat supported with software, and these two phones aren't really giving you that. That's kind of what I'd recommend doing and saying, is that if I'm going to go ahead and buy some sort of device, it really wouldn't be either one of these. Like I said, you are much better off buying devices that are still supported with software, and both these devices are no longer supported. So keep that in mind, but that's kind of how I'd say it. I would recommend buying some other phones, and those are all linked down in the description like I mentioned before. So if you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video.